Hey everyone, Panyo here. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of After Dinner Mints. Before we begin, I highly encourage everyone watching to join us in the Art Blocks Discord. For those watching us on the live stream, there will be people in the community chatting in the Art Blocks Mints channel. A link to our Discord can be found in the description of this video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode of our weekly show. And now I want to introduce our guest for this evening. We have CCO of Art Blocks and generative artist, Jeff Davis.
Hi, everybody.
And then we have founder of imnotART NFT Gallery space in Chicago, Matthew Schapiro.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. Jeff, I want to go ahead and get started with you. You were on a very early edition of After Dinner Mints when it was only audio on Discord as you prepare for your project Rhythm. I want to learn, about the pre-Art Blocks days of Jeff Davis from the 90s and 2000s. Can you kind of start by taking us through a tour of your early art days starting in the 90s?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's kind of scary to talk about. I started art in the 90s, but yeah, I mean, I didn't actually start kind of getting into art until I was in college as an undergraduate. I went to school to study math primarily, and then I was gonna maybe explore physics kind of while I was at school. And so I took some physics classes, and I did not like those, but I liked the math, and so I stuck with that. But then my sophomore year, I went to a small liberal arts school in Wisconsin called Lawrence, and I had to take liberal arts requirements, and one of them was sort of an arts or, you know, humanities kind of requirement. And so I took a studio art class just to fulfill that requirement, and I really enjoyed it. And then I took another art class, and I took another art class, and then pretty much by the end of my sophomore year, I was trying to figure out how to add a studio art major on top of the math major I was already pursuing. So if you want to go ahead and pull up my
Shared screen?
screen, yeah.
Yep, I got you.
So I thought, yeah, I would just start from the beginning and sort of walk through where I started. So this bracket. This is my website where I've just kind of cataloged most everything that I've done artistically. It's been harder to do more recent things with the size of some of the editions, but definitely historical work. And so this was work I was doing as an undergraduate. And so, yeah, I was just looking at kind of my surroundings, trying to figure out ways to simplify them and sort of reconstitute them with numeric proportions. So everything was kind of 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 or 1-to-3, 1-to-4. And so kind of exploring just really simplified sort of number relationships, but in a representational way. So kind of distilling down things I was seeing to just their very basic elements. And then trying to also get them to a point where they're right on this border between being non-representational and representational. Like, how simplified can you make something and still have it look like something in the real world before it starts breaking down and just looking like just shapes? And so this is all work I was doing as an undergraduate. This was these bigger ones. This was my senior thesis show. I did some very large painting installations for that. And then when I graduated, I felt like I was just getting started with art, so I went straight to grad school for art. I got my MFA at the Art Institute of Chicago, and just kind of continued, with the kind of work that I was doing. And so I guess I should. So just in terms of media, these are all like traditional printmaking techniques, so like etchings or relief prints, lithographs, and then some paintings. Some of these are smaller paintings. And larger paintings, and some of these are actually constructions. Like, so these like black lines are actually raised off of the painting. So I was doing some woodworking to kind of build sort of frameworks and things like that. And then kind of proceeded in that same fashion as I went to grad school. So kind of now I'm in grad school. So these are paintings, and I started getting into silk screening for a printmaking technique that seemed to have a lot of control for me, probably out of any traditional media that I worked in that seemed I could get the most precision out of silk screening. And then that's also when I started studying color theory. I guess I'm riffing on what I'm seeing pop up on my screen here. But so some of these things like this green to blue progression and this orange to brown to gray. I was studying color theory at this time based on Joseph Albers' interaction of color. And so that stuff started seeping into my work, the way I was approaching color. So
Were you always interested? Were you always interested in color, or is that something that during your studies that's something that kind of came up?
Yeah, no, it totally came as part of studying it. So like early on, I was using color, but just sort of in a representational way. But you'll see, like a lot of this work is just black and white. It's just sort of linear stuff. I was really focused much more like on the compositional elements. Yeah, and using color to some degree, but a lot of times very monochromatic, just yellow and blacks and grays or green and grays. Yeah, and it wasn't until I got into grad school and started learning more about color that I started expanding, I guess, what I was doing in terms of color.
So a lot of the pieces that I'm seeing they look a lot like sides of buildings. I know some of the artwork that you have in OpenSea, it represents a couple of these pieces. Was architecture something also that was really big while you were in school, something that you really wanted to focus your studies on?
Yeah, and not really like in a sense of like architecture as like studying architecture or doing something. It was just literally like buildings around me and using those as inspiration. Absolutely, yeah, for finding mathematical structure, basically. So living in Chicago, I'll kind of get back to this, I suppose, when we talk about neighborhood, but just living in Chicago, living in the city, and just sort of the endless supply of, building shapes and window shapes and doors. And that's pretty much what all my work is. And some of it's interiors and some of it's exteriors. So some of these are like more meant to be like exterior things, but like this piece is like of a abstraction of a kitchen. So this is like a couple of counter cabinets and a window and a kitchen in an apartment. I lived in Chicago. So it was kind of a, mixture of just things, but yes, probably the fact that most architecture is horizontal, vertical, right angles. That's the space I wanted to work in anyway. And so that was just giving me sort of like a framework to like explore, like I was saying, sort of mathematical sort of concepts that I was trying to pull out of the work. So it was kind of like simplifying, but also ordering, I guess, my surroundings on some level.
That was in the early 90s, and now we're pulling into like the late 90s.
Yeah, and so this is post-grad school, so I just pretty much did 100% painting. I didn't have facilities anymore, so I was just kind of working out of, an odd room in a house or a floor of a house, I guess, that I was renting in Chicago. So I just kind of had a little makeshift studio space, and so I was making some paintings. That's what this is. And then, when was that?
Do you still have any of these paintings? I mean, or did you sell these at all, or?
I haven't, not a ton, to be honest. I mean, I have a lot of stuff in storage, but I've sold some. But mostly what I was doing was like, after I got out of grad school in Chicago, I was only in Chicago after grad school for a year, and then I moved here to the Phoenix area. But yeah, I would just make a bunch of work, oftentimes for like an exhibition that I would have, either a group show or I'd find a solo exhibition at an independent space, in town, and sort of work towards that. And yeah, but most of it ended up just being like, they weren't, a lot of my opportunities I was just finding weren't necessarily super commercial. So I was just finding independent spaces to put my work up and share it with people. And so it generally all came home with me after having a month-long exhibition or whatever. So yeah, I do have a lot of stuff in storage, just stuff that's just accumulated over the years. I feel like I jumped ahead a bit much. Oh, okay. One thing I want to touch on is this is kind of the end of sort of my painting era. I did a residency at the Vermont Studio Center kind of around this time, so late late 90s. And so a lot of this work came from, I spent a month there where it's just an amazing experience. They basically give you a place to live, a studio space, and, kind of a cafeteria for meals. And you just hole up and just do artwork. So I kind of took a sabbatical from the teaching job I was doing at the time and went there and lived there for a month and explored a lot of this work there. And then here, I guess you're starting to see things get a little serial a little bit. So obviously these two are the same thing, different colors, three things, but in different colors. So here I'm starting to explore like taking one theme and then making variations of the same work. But it was all very manual, a lot of masking tape, really working at trying to get brush strokes eliminated from the paintings. But I was never really super happy with that process. I never really liked actually painting. I mean, I liked being done with painting and having the work of art at the end, but to me, it was always about like, I want to make this thing. I know what I want it to look like. And then the painting was just sort of like a production process that I would go through to like get to the end point. And at the same time, I had been teaching myself like Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. And I'd actually use that more as like a sketchbook. Like I'd figure out a lot of the things I was wanting to do in those programs, and then I would mask them out, and paint them. But I was never really happy with the precision. And so, but I also wasn't happy at the time, we're talking late 90s, that printing technology offered either to like take the digital things I was doing and like make prints out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is about the time where that changed for me. I started discovering some processes that I felt were sharp enough, good enough color. And so at this point, kind of right at the turn of the century, I guess, I started doing digital work. So these are all now digital pieces that I created in Illustrator and then turned into prints. And so again, same methodology. I was looking at my surroundings and simplifying them into these sort of like basic forms and progressions of shape and progressions of color. So these are all just different representations. Like this is a really big series I did. These are all called Superstore. So this was after moving to Arizona. My colors kind of got a little brighter. And these were all the big box stores. They're just sort of like representations of different box stores and just different color palettes applied to them.
So would you travel around town then and, kind of take note of, what some of these big box stores would look like, and then kind of use that as a base of how you work that into your own art?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily like go out like looking, right? So it would just be like when I am out and about, I'm probably just sort of like mentally cataloging
Mm-hmm.
things. And then yeah, if something kind of comes to me, I always kept I had a little like notepad of just graph paper, like a little, I don't know, 3x4 pad of graph paper, and I would just sketch out, like, oh, okay, this is kind of something I was thinking about. And then usually, like a lot of these where they start expanding, I'm actually starting to probably think generatively. I just don't really know it yet. So I would do like one, and then I'd be like, well, okay, that sign, I could do it in a few different ways. And then, oh, the door pattern, like I could repeat it in different ways, or, so sometimes I would come up with this like a single composition or a concept, and I'd be like, oh, but if I sort of rearrange things or expand things or shift lines around in that framework, I could create variations on the same kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is all prints that I was doing. And so I did this for several years. So probably, yeah, here 99 to 2002. And then that was kind of my practice into 2003, 2005. Some of these at the bottom here, these are all drawings that I did. This was the other residency that I did. This was, yeah, like 2003. I went to Taos, New Mexico, and pretty similar to what I did in Vermont. I stayed at the Wurlitzer Foundation for a month and I guess this piece is called Casita. I stayed in a little casita, and which had just both a living space, live space with a studio. But I had been doing digital work at that time. And so I did some drawings on the side, but yeah, I was spending my time on my laptop, doing this kind of work
Yeah.
while I was there. But I bring that up because that is also where I ended up writing the bulk of Foundations of Design while I was on that residency. So I would spend the days making art, and then after dinner, I would just sit and write, write all night. And so I basically wrote the whole textbook while I was there. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It was just the text of it. And so later it would come, I'd eventually get it published. We can get into that. But that residency is where I sort of spent the time, getting into that. But then this period was when my older son was born in 2000 and my younger son was born in 2004. And so you'll see that there's kind of this gap, 2005 to 2009. I just kind of shifted my priorities and just wanted to spend more time with the kids as they were growing up. And I kind of just stopped doing art, frankly, for a while, and just focused on my family. And then when I came back to doing art, I felt really stuck. Like I couldn't figure out how to get back into this same thing that I was doing. Like I wasn't finding visual input that was exciting to me that I wanted to simplify and abstract in the same way that I was doing. And so I started exploring kind of taking some of that same sort of structure that I had been working in to create building abstractions or architectural abstractions, and saying well, what if I just sort of add randomization to the process? So instead of purposely aligning a bunch of rectangles to make them look like a building with windows and doors or whatever, what if I just let chance sort of decide how they were going to be organized? And so this period right here is kind of my first experiments, the black and white ones, obviously. And so what I was doing was I was building Excel spreadsheets, and I was just using them to generate tables of random numbers, and those would make the decisions of the size and placement of the rectangles in these kind of compositions. And then I would manually draw them, in Adobe Illustrator. And then these other ones were, this is just me trying to get my footing. These other things were just photographs that I basically pixelated at the time to just, again, sort of you probably get some early sort of color study sorts of things in some of these, where I was kind of trying to pull, trying to flatten them out and kind of see color relationships. So a lot of sunsets, and some of these are water reflections. These are all just sides of stones or cliffs or things like that. So I was just, but I was just experimenting, really. It's so different. It was so different for me at this time. It was so different from what I was doing before. But I really did settle into this idea of building a system and exploring it. And so I kind of kept on that path, adding more sort of parameters to what I was doing. And then you'll see actually some very early color study type prototypes.
Yeah.
But again, these were all, I was just generating data, random data. I was using Excel for that. That was just the easiest thing I knew how to do. And then drawing all of this was like that. And so, but these are starting to look like a lot of color theories, or color studies, but these were not generatively, or I guess they're not code-based, I guess maybe a better way to put it. So I would randomly have numbers, select the parent colors, and then I had formulas that would, in Excel, that would tell me each individual, click on one, I guess.
So each box
color
would be a color. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would draw this square and I type in the numbers, and I draw this square and I type in the numbers, I draw the square. And so, yeah. So after about a year, 2011, where I started to get in this, I was like, okay, this is promising. I like where this is going. I was like, but this is so tedious. And at the time, I wasn't trying to make everything good. It was 100% random. And so I'd have to make a lot more items than what I actually selected to turn into prints, which is a common early, way that a lot of generative artists work. Not, I shouldn't say early, but it's a way a lot of generative artists work. You take an algorithm, you create a whole bunch of output, you weed out the bad ones, you keep the good ones, and you say these good ones are what the series is. This is what my art is. And so I was doing that, but I had to manually draw each one to find that out. So I'd draw a color study, spend a couple hours doing it or whatever, and be like, nope, that's no good, and I throw it out. And that started getting tedious. And I was like, I want to iterate faster and create more work. And so that's when I started teaching myself processing, right around this time too, 10 years ago. And so I kept doing similar work, but now these ones are actually being done in processing. So these are my first processing algorithms. I guess these are reverse chronological order. Actually, I think these bottom ones are still manual, to be honest. And I think probably here, this is probably my first processing algorithm,
what was your
rectangle
motive?
studies.
Like was there somebody that got you into processing, or was it something, or some artist maybe, or, what got you into it and learning and being like, hey, you know what, I need to learn this so that I can utilize it with my art?
Yeah, I mean, nothing. I didn't know anyone who was doing anything like this. I mean, I was coming at it from kind of more traditional contemporary art world, but just doing digital things and trying to take digital things back to that sort of world. And so these were just like, I was just trying to find the right tools for what I wanted to work on. And I literally just think just Googling stuff and trying to be like, there's got to be a way to automate, what I'm doing or script sort of the process, that I'm looking at, no pun intended. And so, yeah, I just discovered it on the web, and I just started basically studying the reference page for processing. I don't know what version it was at that time. I think it was probably like 2, maybe, I would guess. And I just studied the reference page, and I would be like, what's the thing that's sounds like the thing I want to accomplish, rectangle.
Yeah, I'm
and
sure
then
it's a
I would
lot of
look at what,
like guess and check.
yeah. And I just hacked away at it. And I just taught myself by just hacking at commands until I started producing, drawings, and getting it to work. But having said that, I'd been, my background's in math, so it came to me, like I was able to understand it as I was getting into it. And I had been already thinking through a lot of the mathematical elements of it from even just the year or two prior, where I had kind of figured out the math. I just hadn't figured out how to like automate the drawing part of it. So I was able to sort of wrap sort of the drawing functionality of processing around some of the math things that I was doing, in terms of like setting parameters around random numbers and things like that. So I was able to sort of like take the structure of what I was doing and just automate the drawing part of it instead of doing it manually. So this is where I basically got into my, code-based art, and has been everything since has been in this vein. So
that's in 2012. All right, now 2013.
Yeah. So these are just different variations, and you'll see some things that start looking, when I got into NFTs, I kind of took some of my algorithms from this, and these are all prints, I guess I should say. So these were all, I would run an algorithm and make a big series of work based on it, and then make, and it just depended on what I was doing. But these were kind of small portfolios. So this was like a 10 print portfolio, and then they're kind of staggered a little bit, but these ones are another 10 print portfolio, etc. And then like all these square ones, these top ones, this was like a, I don't know, 30 or 40 print portfolio, however many that is.
Those are beautiful. I have a question, actually. Going from painting after grad school to creative coding, how much has the medium changed your approach to art?
To going to creative coding?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had this, like I was kind of explaining, I had this sort of like hard break in my art where I went from representational art to non-representational art. And so to me, that's what, I don't know. So to me, that's where the transition happened in my approach to art and thinking. And I guess I was probably doing like prototypes of generative art in those couple of years prior to actually doing it in processing. So I guess I still sort of think of that all as the same work. I just found the right tools to like do it, to do it efficiently. Yeah. But what I will say is the change that then I guess did happen, you're probably seeing that in this year, 2013. It's before I was thinking more singularly about my work or small series. Like I would think about things in like triptychs or just one. And then as I was able to start automating the drawing, I was able to think about projects in a larger sense. Like there was no way I would have thought about making, a 40 work series because of just the manual labor, doing all that. It would just sort of like take too long or whatever. I just want to move on to some new concept. But once you automate it with, coding, then you're able to just produce much, much more quickly. And so
Yeah.
I think for me, that was probably the main thing that changed from going from, say, Excel spreadsheets to to processing, that I was able to just work much more fast. I was able to
Yeah.
just iterate a
More
lot faster.
efficiently. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I could explore more territory more quickly. And so, yeah, that kind of, there was a couple of year period where it was just sort of like rough, and I was just trying to like figure out what I was doing. And then sort of once I started getting comfortable with processing, then I was able to like be more active again with my art and create more of it. So, and I was never good about like documenting shows that I was having until about this time, 2014. I was like, I gotta start hiring photographers when I have shows to start like documenting like my show. So you can click through some of these, are kind of fun. So this was a series called Location Series. So these were kind of similar to what I did in Neighborhood, but the idea was like I created an algorithm to sort of like look back at sort of trying to create abstractions that looked like some of my prior work. So like you can see like these sort of things look like, I don't know, probably some of the digital work I was doing in this zone.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
like the early,
so
like the late '90s, maybe. Then it
yeah,
kind of
and
showed up
so
again.
this show was algorithmically generating pieces that meant to suggest architectural elements. And so
Got it.
this was a show I had in downtown Phoenix, big solo exhibition. These are all large digital C prints. So they're essentially like large photographs. They're not inkjets, and then they're reverse mounted on plexiglass and
Oh
then
wow.
have mounting. So they kind of look like these really big. It's kind of hard to tell, but
So what was
there's
the?
no.
I was just gonna ask, like, what was the pulse then of like what people thought about coding turning into art at that time? Because
Oh,
a lot has
I didn't.
changed in that this 7 years.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it at all in the context of my work. I literally would just, I would put it up, and then people would. Well, first of all, the funniest thing. So like all the prints that I've been doing over the last however many years at this point, 10 years, they were all digital prints, and then I just was finding different ways. Like if they were smaller, I'd print them on paper and frame them. But if they were larger, I was trying to find these other techniques that were more, I don't know, kind of more object oriented, I guess. And but yeah, everybody first of all would come to these like, oh, these are really nice paintings. They call all these things paintings, just as a broad stroke of like what these were. But yeah, people would talk about the color and talk about the shapes, and it was, frankly, it was just never part of the conversation that these were like code based or algorithmic. And if I tried to, I felt like I would see people's eyes glaze over, and so it was kind of a weird thing. Like I wouldn't. So I'm kind of operating this way, but this would be a show, and then the next week would be like a traditional photography show in this gallery, and then the next week would be, painterly abstraction. And so I'm trying to like do this like rigid digital thing, sort of in the same sort of audience of these other things. And so yeah, I actually didn't talk very much at all. Like it was almost like a negative to the work if you started getting into like the digital nature of it, at the time at least.
How times have changed.
Yeah. So these should look familiar. These are some
like variant plans.
yeah. So that the variant plans are kind of a tweak of that algorithm, but those are meant to be like generative blueprints, kind of, or kind of look like blueprints. This was a show I did just on the abstraction, but these were like some inkjet prints that I did for that show. This is actually the same gallery as the other show I was just showing.
Okay.
But these are called stacks. So these were inspired by driving behind a truck, driving to California with my family on vacation, and they were just sheetrock just stacked up on the back of these trucks. And the way they're cut, they're all perfectly like staggered. And so I just made an algorithm that kind of replicated, some of those patterns.
That's cool. I like that. Did you ever actually? I meant to ask this earlier. Did you ever play around with plotting, like AxiDraw, rather than printing? Back in the day.
No. I actually didn't really know too much about that until, frankly, art blocks. And I knew they existed, but I didn't know how popular they were for generative artists until I started meeting art blocks artists and seeing what everybody was doing with those. So these were all yeah, I was either doing like inkjet prints for like smaller things, and I do them on like a nice, kind of art grade paper. So they would feel kind of like traditional prints, and I'd frame them, or these more sort of like industrial techniques where I was doing the large C prints mounted, face mounted to plexiglass with like, sometimes I'd sandwich them in with like Sintra or dye bond. And so I was kind of using more industrial materials for those when I was doing like large scale stuff.
Got it.
Um,
Okay. So this looks like construction token.
It sure does. So this is the algorithm that inspired construction tokens. So this was a series of however many prints that is, 20 prints. And so, yeah, that was when I first started working on construction tokens for art blocks. This is where I started with. I ended up, kind of modifying quite a bit about it, but visually, they ended up being very similar.
So what inspired you, for those people who don't know, construction token is the very first, or it was part of the first set of projects to release on art blocks. Like what made you choose that one over, some of your previous projects?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I had been, maybe I felt that it had enough variation to it that it could hold up to a longer run. I mean, obviously at the time I'd never thought about doing 500 works of something, or if I had done 500 outputs, I did 500 outputs wanting to get 50, maybe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so that was part of the work of like working on, well, I decided I wanted it to be square. So I had to modify kind of how it was working to be square. And that's the other thing too, is that the way these are coded is based on to be the exact like print size. So, if these are like 18 by 24 prints, the code is like set to make a 12 by 18 image exactly. It wasn't scalable. So that was the other weird thing with art blocks. It's like, oh wait, this has to be able to get bigger or get smaller. So these were all very numerically, like hard coded numerically, like how big everything should be, like the size of the rectangles and things like that.
Got it.
So I had to like loosen that up and make those like scalable, parameters and that sort of thing. And I made them square. But then the other thing too is like, yeah, this algorithm, the construction print algorithm was, oh, you can see that here. So this last one is construction 200. That's because I made 200 of these, but I did that to create 20 prints, right? And I kept the iteration number of the print. So whichever one I kept was the one that, did it. And so I had to do quite a bit of modification to the algorithm so that I didn't have the throwaway ones. And that was actually quite a bit, that took me a while to figure out that part.
Well, I'd love to
because I wasn't controlling it at all. So I'd have ones that would just have like a handful of ones and they'd all be jammed in the corner, or something. And it wasn't, I'd only pick out the ones that spread nicely across the whole print. And so I'd figure out how to like make that happen.
Nice. No, I think it's beautiful. I want to go ahead and segue into, now that you have construction token over here, I do want to segue into, talking about art blocks, how you got into that. Like, how did you link up with Snowfro, and how did you first learn about, crypto and NFTs? I would love to, learn that part about you.
Yeah, well, I'll do NFTs just real quick. So I've been doing it longer than I thought. I looked it up earlier today, but so I started on Super Rare. I didn't know anything about crypto, and it was just sort of like, I think they followed me on Twitter, and Known Origin kind of did sort of around the same time. And so I went and looked at their website, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like being able to just do 100% digital work, like somehow like create, a digital version of my work that could be bought or sold or traded. And so I was just really interested in this idea of like capturing my work digitally without making prints out of it. And so I got onto Super Rare early. This was my first mint ever construction. So these are extensions of a different print series that I've been working on, but so that's why these are numbered this way. I had done 300 plus and narrowed those down into a small print series, but so I kind of kept going on the algorithm and made some NFT specific versions of it. So this was my first mint. So it's only, 3.5 like $1 billion right now, or whatever that works out to be.
It's on sale, it looks like.
On sale, yeah. But I think this is probably my first sale. I did, I put up a few of these in succession over, a couple of weeks. And this is actually the first purchase, Art plus Brad. And it just cracks me up when I look back at this, because it's like, I'm putting these things up and it's like, I accept an offer of 0.15 ETH. And I was like, that was $19 at the time. So obviously I wasn't here. I wasn't like here, like, oh, I'm going to get rich making NFTs. I was like, really, this is cool. Like, just somebody bought a digital file for me, for 0.15 ETH. And it's also cool that it's Art plus Brad. Him and Mattia were early supporters of what I was doing on Super Rare, and actually, like, still to this day, really means a lot to me, because it basically, I started like literally with $40 in Ethereum. I bought it on Coinbase.
Wow.
Moved it to a MetaMask wallet, and that was my first mints. And then I sold a few here, and I kind of made enough to kind of keep minting and kind of keep going. And so, so I just wanted to pop in there. But then, so I did that for, quite a while. I mean, a good year. There was a point where these were just kind of like experiments. I was taking algorithms I had been working on previously and just sort of extending them a little bit and kind of making additions. So you can see some of the stacks here. Mm-hmm. So kind of just making small extensions of algorithms I'd been working on. And then here, this abstract token series, this is when I just kind of got to a point. I was like, you know what, and at the time that I was doing these other works, I was still doing prints and pursuing exhibition opportunities in town with those, and kind of doing this, just dabbling, I guess I would say, with NFTs. And so here, this abstract token project's when I was like, I'm going all in with this, and I'm just going to like make a whole kind of body of work. I'm going to really promote myself on Twitter. I'm going to just really get into it. And so that was this series. And so I think I'm going to guess that through the release of this series, it happened over a couple of months. It was like a 40-piece series. I think that's probably how Eric discovered me, I'm guessing. So I'm, putting these up on Super Rare, I'm tweeting about them, and I think somehow that catches his attention. And so I looked back recently, actually, when I was writing, we were working on, I wasn't writing, but to help provide information for the exhibition catalog for Marfa. Like I looked back, I was like, I'm gonna look in my email and see when I first started talking to Eric. And it was September really early, like 1st or 2nd of 2020. And he just emailed me sort of cold and was like, hey, Jeff, really like your work. I'm working on this new platform, for generative art. I think you might, your work would be a good fit. I think you'd be, be cool to work with you, what do you think? Are you interested? What do you think? And so that was exciting. So we started an email sort of back and forth conversation.
I mean, what's your initial thought though? Are you like, when somebody just cold emails you and is like, hey, I think you should have your art on my platform. The platform's not created yet, but like,
right.
Are you like excited or?
Yeah,
nervous?
I was very excited. So no, I was very excited. So the whole idea of NFTs to me was just like new frontier, so I was like, anything that people wanted to try, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. I'll give it a shot. Like I was so open to like experimenting and trying new things. When I was working on this abstract token series in Super Rare, I had been having, the people that were collecting my work, I was starting to have like Twitter DMs with people and just kind of getting to know people in the community. And I was having a conversation with somebody, I just don't remember who it was, but like talking to them about this idea of like, it would be so great if I could like put my code somewhere and kind of have it work like a vending machine, like an art vending machine, that people could come and buy, parts, buy artwork from me based on the code without me having to like individually make each one, mint it, sell it. Like it'd be really cool. And so when Eric and I when he described it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, I just had this conversation with somebody about like, it'd be awesome to develop an art vending machine. And Eric was like, oh my gosh, yes, I use that description for people too, and they don't get it. Yeah, and he's like, so it's really cool that you kind of get it. And so yeah, so I was just interested. I mean, it was just, I was nervous probably that I wasn't gonna like understand like the technology of it, and that was gonna be like a challenge for me, like the idea of the random hash and like how to like pull information off the hash to like make decisions and, some of that sort of stuff. And then, like Rinkeby test network, like I had no idea like what any of that stuff was. But yeah, and Discord. Actually, I'd never been in Discord. So Eric invited me to this Discord, but there were probably, 5 or 6
people?
artists. Yeah, no, it was a handful of artists that he probably had sent other emails to and said, yeah, and come in, pop into my Discord. I don't know how long it had existed, but it was like, and I had never used Discord before. And I kind of went in there and I just left and I just told Eric, I was like, just keep emailing me. Like, I don't get, I don't understand Discord. Let's just keep talking via email or phone or whatever. I'm old. But so anyway, yeah. And so I pulled up, because I was curious about this. So this is a tweet from, so this is September 30th, beta testing a new project, hash determined unique art on demand. So this is
September 30th, yeah, 2020.
So this is, I recorded myself, tweeted it. It's probably bad resolution. Is it going?
It looks fine.
I can't tell if it's going or not.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like it's moving. Anyway, so yeah, this is a video of me just, spitting out construction token outputs on
That's cool.
Art
That's
Blocks
cool that you
Rinkeby.
save that. I mean, I would think that, half the people are just like, oh, it's. Did you know at the time you're like, this could be something special? So that's why you recorded it?
No, I was doing, well, it was really fun. Like part of it was like the thrill of being on Rinkeby and making mints. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Like I just push a button, I make art, push a button, make art.
Yeah.
And so I was, I was trying to share, I guess, some of that excitement, but also, like I said, like I was kind of new into NFTs and, I wasn't selling them for any particular amount of money or whatever. And so at the same time I was using it as like a marketing technique for my art and for myself as an artist. And so I was sharing, kind of what I was working on. I did that all the time anyway. And then I had developed Abstract, the Abstract token as a currency, as a social currency. And so I found other tweets earlier today when I was kind of digging through this, like I was offering people Abstract to go get Rinkeby and mint construction tokens on Rinkeby to like check it out and like promote my project, to get people to come look at it. So that was kind of funny. So that's where it started. And then, so this is, we were talking in early September. This is me first beta testing in late September. And then things just kind of went quiet kind of through October, kind of late October into November. And, I wasn't necessarily bugging him. I was doing other things on Super Rare. But then, I don't know if we had very much communication up at this point, but essentially on Thanksgiving night, 2020, Eric was just emailed me, like literally, like I had already had Thanksgiving and was kind of like going to bed. It was like late at night. And I think he was like staying up really late that night, like getting the mainnet version of Art Blocks working, and just emailed me. He was like, okay, we're going live. It was I think 10 o'clock my time, Black Friday. And, and we're just gonna, unpause everything and just make it happen. I was like, okay, cool. So like I woke up on Thanksgiving or on Black Friday, just kind of came downstairs and like, it's like, okay, time to unpause. And I minted the first 3. We had no rules around, like, what are we doing? I was like, oh, I want to keep some of these for myself. So I minted the first 3 construction tokens. I minted, I think, number 2 Chromie Squiggle and like 2 or 3 Genesis or something like that. Wow. I think we all just sort of minted the first couple of each other's, and then just, I was like, okay. And then sales started coming in and more sales started. I think, and I didn't know at the time, but I think Eric probably went and started chatting it up in the Punks Discord, I'm guessing. And I think a lot of those people maybe came over, maybe not, I don't know, started minting. I can see Eric also, so I'm just reacting to his reaction. But yeah, and it just, sales just started literally just picking up and picking up and picking up. And 2 hours later, construction tokens was sold out. So that was a 500 iteration series.
That's crazy. So it's almost been 1 year.
Yeah. I mean, so this coming Thanksgiving is the 1 year anniversary basically of Art Blocks.
Yeah, that's nuts. And so after, construction token, You did View Card, I believe. Was that the first playground project?
Yeah, I think I actually, I don't know which is which. I did View Card and Variant Plan almost at the same time.
Got it.
I don't know which project is which. I could probably find out. I think one's 5 and one's 6. Yeah, so I actually think I did View Card or Variant Plan first. I don't know why it's not showing up here. So Variant Plan was a commission. So after the first couple of Art Blocks projects came out, someone inquired to Eric and said, we'd love to do a commission. It was a variant fund, and they wanted to give out NFTs to their sort of investors and things like that to kind of like see if they could get them, onto the NFT bandwagon. And so I created a variant plan algorithm and put it on Art Blocks and handed over the keys to the person who commissioned it. And so then they had full control over the project. I basically transferred the wallet address off of mine to someone else's. So then they had the ability to like mint them. And so they minted the series, I think it was 200. And basically, I mean, they were using some different tech, but for all practical purposes, airdrop them to people essentially as like Christmas gifts at the end of 2020. And then I was working on View Card at the same time, but what that was actually was, and I was working on a project for async art called View Program. And so this was a programmable NFT where there's a bunch of layers. And so you have control over it's meant to look like a building with sort of like different light sort of reflections off of it. Somewhat synthetic looking. It's not meant to be like natural necessarily, but so just kind of an opportunity to play with color mixtures. But that was the idea. It was like weird color reflections off of like a glass, kind of building. And so there were controls for what the window patterns were. Conditions were like, if it was night or day or, I can't remember all the conditions, but then controlling each of the corner colors. And so then what View Cards was basically defined instances of what could happen on View Program. So I wrote a different algorithm that created deterministic outputs of what could happen in View Program. So that was a series of 40. And both of those projects were just, frankly, just Eric and I just like, what are different use cases for Art Blocks? Like, let's experiment. Like, what can we do? And then at that point, it was just more about like bringing more artists on. They were literally like some projects 2, 5, and 6. On the platform, we were just experimenting, trying to figure out what we could do with it.
Got it. And then you've done other projects you've done. Color Study, Rhythm, Portal. Portal is only what is that? 10 minutes total. That's like the biggest log jam I think in all of our blocks.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to like make it difficult for people. It was just the nature of what I was doing. So Color Study and Rhythm are both kind of like standard, Art Blocks projects. They're not. Color Study is 2,000. Rhythm's 300 something. But Portal I did that specifically for Bright Moments in Venice. So I had talked to them when they were kind of getting established, and we talked about having an exhibition there. And so for that, they had 3 screens. I knew I was going to keep them at 0, so it was just like having 9 works essentially out there and kind of rotating 3 on each screen. And so it was really just focused on creating a project that was very specific for that context of that exhibition of Portal.
Got it.
So,
cool.
And then a very similar thing. Well, I feel like I'm taking up a lot of time. I haven't looked at the clock, so I'll.
Very good.
So, and that was kind of a very similar thing with Neighborhood. So, like maybe we can just transition to Matt at this point. So, similar thing. They were kind of getting set up in Chicago, and I was like, this is really interesting. So, I reached out to Matt and was like, I'd love to work something out and try to have a show, with you guys in Chicago. It would actually mean a lot to me. And so that's what this project kind of was too, was again, going to that sort of like, all right, I'm going to have an exhibition in Chicago. What do I want to kind of think about just in the context of that show? And that's how Neighborhood came about, is sort of a look back at some of, again, sort of the work I was doing earlier in my career, but also thinking about, just the visual nature of downtown Chicago and try to how to capture that, sort of geometrically, abstractly, and through algorithms. So that these last two shows have been very much about like having an exhibition opportunity and then making a project to sort of fit, into that opportunity.
Great. And then I have just, I want to touch base on just two more questions. What has been the most challenging part about the growth of Art Blocks? You've obviously seen it from the beginning, day one, up until today. What has been the biggest challenge, and what do you look forward to, I guess, the most, in the future as when it comes to Art Blocks?
Well, I mean, the biggest challenge is just the rapid kind of growth and popularity, which is it's not a problem. It's just it creates a lot of volume in my day-to-day work, and so I absolutely love working with artists and helping them bring their projects to life on Art Blocks. But as we've just had to just do, kind of work with more and more artists and just kind of our library essentially getting bigger and bigger, the challenge is that I don't get to spend as much individual time on a project by project basis than maybe I did 6 months ago or whatever, where I'd have more time to like spend more one-on-one time with individual artists. So to me, that's like the biggest challenge, but we are hiring artist liaison person, which I think will actually help with that. So help sort of like share some of the onboarding duties with me, which I hope will then allow me to be more targeted and more strategic about the way I'm interacting with artists so that I can actually have more dialogue with them aesthetically, conceptually, in terms of like what it means to like release 1,000 edition project. Maybe they're not used to thinking about their work that way. So there's a lot of conversations that I like to have with artists along those lines, that are difficult now, but I think as we grow internally, that will help me, kind of have more time to do that.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, yeah, I'm just super excited. Just, at first it felt very niche and geeky, and I was still excited to be a part of it, at that point. And just the growth and the popularity has just been like phenomenal. Like I couldn't have dreamt like being where we are today. And it makes me feel like, like I try to temper sort of, ego's not the right word, but sort of like my expectations. But the more I'm doing this, the more I'm like, I kind of feel like we're on the verge of something, special, real. And so that's what's exciting for me, is to like keep it going, keep moving the ball forward. And what's the next opportunity? What's the next space we want to get into? That this is like a real thing, and it has legs. And I'm so excited to just kind of keep running with it.
Amazing. And then how can people reach you, if they have any questions, or if they, I know you have your own channel on Art Blocks Discord.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best place for like art questions. Like if people want to talk about my art, I would say my channel in Discord. I try to pop in there once a day, and if there's people have questions or whatever, I'll answer them. DMs are always open. That's probably better for like artist inquiries, things like that. And Twitter, but I actually not crazy about Twitter DMs, but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, and that's how you can probably keep track of like what I'm up to as an artist, I suppose.
Sounds great. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for joining us today, talking
Thank
to us
you.
about, the early 90s, 2000s, and, how you got into Art Blocks. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Sorry I ran a little long, so thank you though.
No problem at all. Well, up next we have Matt Schapiro, who is the founder of imnotART NFT Gallery space in Chicago. How you doing, Matt?
Doing well, Ponyo. Doing well. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Well, I want to go ahead and get started with you. How did you get into NFTs? Obviously, this is like the bulk of like what you do now, but I'm just curious to know like kind of your background, how you got into this space.
Sure, yeah. I've always been interested in kind of digital assets, I guess, and my background comes from like video games. And so, although not really NFTs, kind of Counter-Strike skins and stickers were actually my first entry point a little bit into digital assets. And then around a little bit after that, in about 2015, 2016, into 2017, I really started getting into first Bitcoin, then Ethereum, and then, everything that Ethereum really offers. And so my first taste of real NFTs were probably CryptoKitties back in like 2017. Also, a bunch of other projects that were games that no longer exist anymore, like Ether Tanks, Ether Tulips, a bunch of those early ones. I just remember getting fascinated at this kind of hybrid of kind of video games and actual asset ownership and kind of how that all comes together. So I've been around for a while and kind of got really excited about it back in 2017, new paradigm and everything, and then kind of wrote it all the way down, and then was really excited to kind of see it kind of come back up again the last year or so.
Awesome. And then so obviously now you have a NFT gallery space. I feel like there's only so many in the country right now, or at least in the States, but I feel like it's continuing to rise. Like, how did you come up with the idea? And can you talk to us through the process of creating an NFT gallery space?
Sure. Yeah. So the idea actually kind of came really naturally to us. We started in crypto voxels in the metaverse, building what we called a community gallery. And so the idea was we wanted to create an online platform that really allowed artists to kind of enter the space. And we actually looked really a lot at art blocks and saw kind of how cool what they were doing, and saw an opportunity to build something kind of along those lines where you're introducing artists into the space, pairing them with coders maybe who know P5JS, whether it's generative or not, and kind of onboard them kind of in the NFT space. So that was our idea back when we started in February. And from there, we took kind of a little bit of a metaverse pivot. We saw where people were actually displaying NFTs and where artists were kind of congregating. And we saw the metaverse crypto voxels as something that we just really wanted to be a part of. And from there, we developed this community gallery. And for about 3 or 4 months, we had an event every week where we had people submit art in our Discord, and then basically curated these exhibitions every week. And as that was growing, we noticed that we were having a lot of success in the metaverse. There were a lot of people who were showing up to our events, and we thought there was a real need for for something like this. We also noticed there were a ton of people from Chicago. Like, our whole community is international, but there was something special happening in Chicago, and that was kind of where the idea popped in our head. We're like, what if we actually made this like in real life? Like, what if we made a physical version of this metaverse community gallery type concept that we were building? And that's where I'm Not Art Chicago is really born. We found this space in Wicker Park that used to be an art gallery, and so we
Oh,
just,
nice.
when we kind of saw this space, yeah, because it was really important, and we didn't want to just build like any art gallery, any NFT gallery. We had a high bar, and it was literally, we wanted to create something that was good enough for an art blocks gallery exhibition. And so we wanted to make, and we took the extra steps to hiding all the wires. We wanted to get really kind of large, kind of immersive displays, and we wanted to build this environment that it really felt like could see like a fine NFT art exhibition in. And so when Jeff reached out to us, it was probably really early. I mean, we opened in June. We were talking in June or maybe May as we were talking about the idea of it. It was just such an honor for to have an opportunity to work with Jeff, and to have an actual art blocks project like on our walls, and to actually see that happen. And as we worked together over the last couple months, and then actually have the exhibition, it was just really validating for kind of our concept and what we wanted to do, to see it kind of work so well with Jeff's work.
Got it. That's awesome. And then, do you plan to branch out into other cities? I mean, I know you've only been around for just a couple months since June, but do you think that's in the plan book for down the road, like to branch out outside, either within Chicago or Illinois, but even throughout the U.S.
Yeah, I see a ton of opportunity, and I feel that I'm Not Art is part of this, and it's the early part of it, but of this large movement where this NFT space really starts having kind of physical places where people can congregate and meet. And it came naturally out of our community as we wanted to meet our friends. We wanted to have a place where we could all kind of share these experiences and build new experiences. And what's happening here in Chicago is exportable all over the world. And so what we want to do ultimately is have locations all over, but our immediate kind of goal is really to kind of stake our ground in Chicago here, and kind of take On That Art to the next level. And so we've got some ideas about how to do that, actually turning the gallery space we have, which we have a great gallery and a patio, but actually, what if we had the whole building here, would allow us to kind of really take what we're building here to the next level. And so, to answer your question, We think what we're doing here is completely exportable, and we support anybody building in this directions, whether it's bright moments down in LA and what they're doing with
Hmm.
rituals, with on-site minting is another thing that we're going to start experimenting with. It's just there's so much potential to create experiences, NFT related experiences that nobody's seen before, and that's why like our whole drive of being the first kind of physical digital gallery where we came from the metaverse, we're metaverse native. When we did the exhibition with Jeff, we had a whole component of it online in the metaverse. And I think some of his family members are actually able to watch in the metaverse and kind of take in
Yeah.
kind of that thing. And so to me, that's kind of what drives us every day is creating unique experiences, whether it's art and working with art blocks or it's music and doing kind of a hybrid event or fashion or really anything. So we're just really kind of excited to keep experimenting.
Definitely. And I know, and we were talking about it earlier before we started the call. You're kind of on a busier part or a busier part, I guess, a busier section of the street. And, education, I feel like, is kind of it's a key component, with, having a space, especially a storefront where people just walking by. And do they pop in and they ask you questions? They're like, hey, like, what are you guys doing here? What is crypto? Because I'm sure there's a lot of crypto curious people, but a lot of people aren't educated. They're unsure what NFTs are. And is that something that you guys provide also?
Yeah, that's one of our main kind of priorities is using this as kind of like an educational hub. And so we want to be and create an experience that's approachable for people that are anywhere on kind of that range of crypto, savvy to not even knowing what any of this stuff is. And we feel that this gallery is actually like one of the best places in the world to kind of explain to people what an NFT is. And we have a big screen that we can kind of start showing them kind of, on Etherscan, kind of what the actual token is and kind of use this format. I think seeing NFTs visually is not kind of the preferred medium or the initial medium of how you would look at an NFT, right? Like I'm from the community, and I never seen any of my NFTs up, until we bought these monitors in a place like this. And so we feel that that's a way that we can connect with people that are newer, kind of, or more skeptical, or just trying to understand what it is. Because if you're a traditional art collector, you can
Hmm.
come in here and kind of see it and kind of feel it, and also then hear it explained from us in a way that can really kind of resonate. So, to answer your question, I think we want to be approachable by people all over, all over that range. And education is so critical. And that's as somebody that's been a part of the ETH community, especially back in, as some of the earlier dApps were launching in like 2016, 2017, 2018, like the community, the actual number of people using these things was incredibly small. And now it's definitely a lot larger. You have a bunch of people who've come into the ecosystem, but it's still very, very small. Like
Yeah.
the metaverse, everybody knows the metaverse is the next big thing, and we're just excited to be building out experiences in the metaverse. And, there's so many things that I think are possible now. And this is the very beginning, and the technology is going to continue to evolve. But we see imnotART being able to play in that space and to create experiences that, haven't ever really been possible. And again, we're not the only ones who are doing it now or will do it. And we, welcome everybody to be, part of this larger movement of kind of creating these physical hubs for these communities. And that's kind of what's happening now in Chicago and why we're so kind of excited about what's happening.
Yeah, I completely agree. And what are your thoughts? I see some of the screens behind you. It looks like it has Jeff Davis's neighborhood behind there. What are your thoughts on the current offerings for display screens? Do you have like a go-to screen, or are you excited about some kind of future technology that'll be developed over time?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and I think there's technology that is kind of catching up from a display side. I mean, if you look at art blocks projects, art block projects, you need to be able to interact with them. They need to be touchscreens, right? And
Mhm.
so I think that it really depends a little bit at this point of kind of like what's your use case. And so the displays we use right now are as a company called Black Dove, and when we were building the gallery, we wanted really high quality, large immersive displays, and to a T, that's exactly what they are. They're not, touchscreen, at the moment or whatnot, but they're able for us to display the NFTs and kind of in a way that really kind of is immersive and impressive to people that see them. And I'm a purist. Like I want it to be as close to displaying the actual NFT as
Yeah,
possible. So, loading it from IPFS and having information on a Raspberry Pi or something that shows like the current owner, like all the other metadata and whatnot. And so, like as a purist, I want to, and I'm very interested to see how the technology evolves here. I know know that with Art Blocks and what you guys do in Marfa surely are looking at kind of the same issue. Is like, how do you create these screens that are able to be dynamic, to be able to show an Art Blocks piece? And so, to that end, I'm excited to see what continues to be developed. My team, or the team at imnotART, we're working on some software potentially for our own gallery to be able to kind of display it the way that we want. But from an actual display perspective, you know, what I tell people when they come and look at the displays here is we have the same exact version replicated in the metaverse, and in the metaverse on CryptoVoxels, it's directly integrated with OpenSea. So it is true to form. We do display the actual NFT true to form like in the metaverse, and here in the physical sense, it is a bit more of a representation. Unless we did what we did with Jeff, which was actually loaded directly from like the Art Blocks generator, which I thought was pretty interesting. And so
Yeah.
we are able on the panels to be able to load it directly from there. And in general, just excited about kind of the future developments in that space for sure.
What has been like the kind of the biggest challenges that you've faced as, obviously I feel like these in real life NFT gallery spaces, it's obviously very new with, I feel like in the past year they're starting to pop up, but like what are some of the early challenges that you all have faced?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like we had to take a bunch of like leaps of faith a little bit in how we designed the place in terms of buying a lot of the displays and kind of not knowing 100% how they would end up looking, redoing all the electrical and creating a configuration that we weren't 100% sure would actually hide all the wires, because that was really important to us to create something that was like very as pure as possible from an aesthetic standpoint. And so, those were some challenges early on. Now it's like, how do I make this model kind of sustainable? What we did since February, I've got a team of 8 other people with me, that are metaverse builders, UI UX designers, Solidity devs, basically all across the gambit. And since February, we've been doing this all part-time and without taking any money from any of the work that we displayed in our community gallery. So it actually wasn't until August when we did our first exhibition that we actually started making a little bit of money. But the way that we really see being able to build this out and continue is kind of through future drops, and whether there's on-site minting, a la what Ritual is doing right now, or getting into fashion and other types of things that could have some on-site minting functions. That's how we see kind of the some of the challenges we're trying to figure out right now to really make what we're doing sustainable, because my team's still all working part-time, and we think there's a lot of opportunity, but we have to prove it. So that's
Yeah. And,
exciting.
and if there are artists that are interested in, doing something, whether it be art blocks artists or just other artists in general, is it something where they should reach out to you, or is there kind of some kind of process to be considered?
Yeah, so we have a pretty good process for artists that want to get involved in what we're doing. It all runs through our Discord, and on our Discord we have a channel called Community Gallery, and that's really our roots of where we started. Is we have this channel on our Discord called Community Gallery. Any artist can come join and kind of submit work there. We have some ideas about how we can kind of maybe involve curation from previous artists that have worked with us, as we evolve. But right now we still do all the curation and we build out the show. Our next show, Community Gallery 16, is this Thursday. So if anybody wants to get involved, and that process is how a lot of artists have actually been shown on the walls here for exhibitions. A lot of the artists that we've worked with have been part of that process. So yep, that's the best way to get started.
Excellent. And then how can people reach out to you to learn more about, I'm not art gallery space?
Yeah, you can follow us on Twitter. It's I'm underscore not underscore art. Um, or feel free to send me an email direct. It's at imnotart.com. You can find all our information about our Discord. You can send me an email. It's Matt, MATT at imnotart.com. And, we're just looking to really collaborate with people that are doing interesting things in the space, like even beyond artists and what we're doing here. We want imnotART Chicago to be this educational hub and kind of a storefront for Ethereum. We really want to battle the problem of user onboarding. We really believe in Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem, and want to help onboard people to MetaMask, to Layer 2. And so, if anybody is doing anything interesting and thinks that you could use a physical space like ours to be able to kind of amplify your message and it's in line with what we're doing, definitely reach out, because we're looking to kind of add additional programming and really make this a kind of a hub here in Chicago.
I love it. I could definitely have to visit it sometime. So this is Matt Schapiro, founder of I'm Not Art NFT Gallery Space in Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you again.
All right. Well, up next, it's that time of the evening or day, wherever you're at. I'm going to go ahead and post a link shortly that will lead you to 4 trivia questions. Most answers can be found on the community-driven Art Blocks wiki page, which is artblocks.wiki. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link a couple times inside of the Art Blocks Mints channel. You'll need to answer all 4 questions correctly. And for those who get all answers correct within 3 minutes, their name will be put into a number generator, and one person will be the lucky winner of a brand new Squiggle. How's it going, Snowfro?
Hello, everybody. How y'all doing?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us.
Another Squiggle, man. This is crazy. They're just going. These weeks are going by real quick. It's kind of wild. Thank you guys for joining today. It's really nice to see both of y'all here. Jeff, it's nice to see you on here too. It's really great. I enjoyed the night off, so thanks. And it's always nice hearing that story over again. Holy crap. And what you're doing at imnotART is awesome. So yeah, thanks for joining. Just a little reminder, please, if you're submitting your answers, to make sure you have your ETH address handy.
Yes, please make your ETH address ready.
We're going to start timing it and give an award to the person that takes the longest at the end of the year. I feel like every week it takes a little bit longer. So,
did you have any news or notes that you wanted to provide to the community?
Yeah, I just drove back from Marfa today, and the town is ready for everybody, as ready as it's going to be. The weather's beautiful out there. Definitely, 80s during the day. So I think some of the activities that are going to be out there are going to be daytime. I'm not concerned about anybody being dehydrated, but definitely, wear a hat. It's the desert, and the sun is bright. But yeah, no, it's beautiful. The gallery is looking good. We've got our digital screens up. We've got projects going on there, and furniture starting to fall into place. And just huge props to everybody that spent so much time putting that together. It's coming together nicely. So I'll be there next Monday with a bunch of other people from the Art Blocks team. Not tomorrow, but the next Monday, to get everything ready for the event. And we could not be more excited to have everybody that's coming. It's kind of surreal. I was talking to a lot of Marfa people, and they're like, "So how many people do you think are going to come to your event?" And I think for Chinati weekend, it's kind of expected that there's a lot of people. But when I say 200 to 300, they're like, "What?" It just, I don't think anybody expects that level of engagement for a specific project. So you guys will maybe we'll be breaking some records, and we'll be really happy to see everybody there.
Excellent. And then while we have about 20 seconds left, I'm going to go ahead and read some of these love to see it highlights of the week. Yeah. These are basically just positive moments from the community that I like to highlight each and every week. First one is from 41 Deg North. They wanted to publicly thank community member NoDern, to whom they owe a huge debt of gratitude. I guess a few weeks ago, 41 Deg North trust traded away their ghost ribbed Squiggle, and then I guess apparently the social hacker subsequently fire sold it below market to NoDern. Upon learning this, NoDern proactively contacted 41 Deg North, offered to sell it back, and perhaps most selflessly gave 41 Deg North time to process the stress and make a decision. So props to both of those people. Thank you for highlighting that moment. And the second one is from Z Jorge, who would like to nominate Green Nova for donating the AxiDraw pen plotter that will be used for a few pieces at the Art Blocks house in Marfa, Texas. So for anyone that has any of these positive love to see it highlights, feel free to DM me. We'll go ahead and showcase them each and every week. And yeah, we'll go ahead and see. It looks like time is up. We have 141 people that correctly guessed 4 answers from trivia. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get that started up. Luke, go ahead and fire it away.
Woo! Luck.
Processing it. I don't think it's actually a hyperpipe, but that would be crazy if it was.
Gosh.
All right, looks like number 78. Is that John? Do you want to go ahead and type that in? It looks like the winner is John Harlow.eth. Luke will go ahead and type that into the Discord.
Yeah, congrats, John Harlow.
John Harlow.eth. Please drop your ETH address to either Snowfro or myself, or drop it in the Art Blocks Mints channel.
Yeah, you can just drop it in the Art Blocks Mint channel.
Yeah,
We will
let me
all
see if
know
I can
where it's
tag
going.
them. It looks like they're at these.
Oh, there we are. Yep. Yes, congrats. They'll send me your address.
I guess that's their address, right? So I mean, do we?
Yeah. Oh, it's delayed too. I always forget about that too.
Yeah, there's a delay of like 10, 15 seconds. So, well, congratulations to John Harlow.
Congrats.
While we go ahead and wait to process that, I'll just read that on next week's show, which will actually be pre-recorded. So it'll be on October 3rd. We're going to have a mental health discussion with Dr. Christo Franklin. He's a clinical psychologist, licensed in California and practicing in Los Angeles. So definitely looking forward to that discussion, something that's super important with our community. Everyone's like, John Harlow, Daddy, what is your ETH address?
I never even,
It
we're
might
just so
be
used to saying everybody's like .eth. And that's just part of the usernames. It didn't even, it didn't cross my mind. Since we used to do it on the website, we were able to use ENS. Since we're using multi-sig right now, I would just have to reverse lookup, which I'm happy to do if I don't get John Harlow. John Harlow, send me your ETH address, please. I see you typing.
There's a little delay, but yeah, John Harlow, if you can send the actual ETH address and not your ENS, that would be much appreciated.
I'll start reverse looking it up. Let me just do that. Just in case. John Harlow.eth.
All right, we'll go ahead and get that processed. Just as a reminder, I know I just mentioned a minute ago, but on next week's show, which will be pre-recorded for next week, which is on October 3rd, mental health discussion with Dr. Christo Franklin, a clinical psychologist licensed in California and practicing in LA. After the October 3rd show, we will be taking a 1-week break to celebrate all things Marfa, and then eventually we will be transitioning to have after dinner mints on Wednesdays to keep our weekends free. Going to try to potentially look into some daytime after dinner mints for people in Europe and across the world. And if not, then we'll go ahead and keep some of these obviously during our normal time slot of 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern time. So look forward to that in the next few weeks.
Awesome. That's going to be a good one. And I went ahead and sent the transaction to the multisig. So if the squigglers are around, please confirm it. C1 is in. Need one more. Woohoo. And then we'll have a squiggle.
All right. Well, hopefully that other person confirms.
Oh, yep. All right. We have everybody. All right, guys, I'm submitting the transaction. Good luck. Wait, let me up the gas a little bit just so we're not sitting around waiting forever. It is Sunday night and all. All right, transactions in. Good luck, John Harlow.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and look on Art Blocks.
Where do you look? Oh, at live.artblocks.io.
Yeah, I was going to look on there.
Well, it's kind of in the middle of the drop too. Oh, there it is. 90. Oh, it says token does not exist, so we need to refresh that. Oh, well, it's minted. Let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, I think Luke's going to put it on the screen in just a moment. not coming through yet. It might take a couple seconds.
What number was it? 07?
Is that 9206? Oh, that is a really nice one.
Oh, it's up?
Yeah. I just had to hit refresh a couple times. It's got some nice.
Oh, there we are.
Deep
Oh,
colors.
beautiful.
I love it.
No flat spots. Congrats. Woo.
Congrats. Well, Snowfro, do you have any other news or comments?
No, that's it. Just yeah, thanks everybody for joining. As usual, you guys are all amazing. Everybody that's helping produce this. There's been some comments and user feedback, and I just maybe sometimes don't really kind of get to share how much goes into these things. So really, we are incredibly lucky that we get to put this thing on every week. I know it's like hours and hours and hours on Luke's time, and Ponyo's getting to get prepared, and it's just yeah, thank you guys for all the work, all the guests, all the questions, all the Squiggle bots. Y'all are awesome. And yeah, thank you everybody for joining.
We appreciate you. I want to thank all of our guests, Jeff Davis, for your great history of learning about the 90s, 2000s, up to Art Blocks, and learning about some of your drops. Really appreciate it, and look forward to a new drop hopefully coming in the next. Well, I guess you just came out with the neighborhood, so we'll give you a little bit of time before the next drop. But thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sorry that I'm old, so I had a lot to talk about. So I apologize for.
Not at all. I think we definitely could have had a conversation for like 3-4 hours if we want to, but we'll do that another time. But I really appreciate you being on. I want to thank Matt Schapiro from imnotART NFT Gallery Space in Chicago for being on. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing everything that you guys do in the future, and I already know that I'm sure we're going to have some artists reach out to you, hopefully do some cool minting processes in real life in Chicago. I love it. So thank you for being on.
Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and look forward to doing anything again with anybody at the Art Blocks team. You guys are legends. Honestly, I'm like giddy being able to even be a part of this, and so directly inspired our project. So just thank you guys again for everything that you do, and yeah, just looking forward to keep building in this direction.
Excellent.
Likewise, man. We need more of what you do too. So thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Well, for everyone that's out there, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe to the Art Blocks YouTube channel. Remember to be kind to each other. Remember to buy what you love and what you can afford. And we will see you all next week.
Later, everybody.